Good morning, good afternoon, and depending where you are, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar titled Disrupting Corporate Learning During and Post-COVID-19. I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. This topic is near and dear to my heart, and I will be happy to answer your questions. So no question is too silly or out of bounds, so please feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A panel, the window. I'm including my contact details and my website URL on a later slide, and will be included in the slide deck that will be posted on my website later. If we are unable to get to your question or questions during this webinar due to time constraint, or you wish to follow up with other questions, please feel free to contact me. I'm available on LinkedIn, Twitter, and other channels. I like the following quotations. Training is an event. Learning is a process. Learning is fundamentally a social phenomenon. Those mantras describe how we learn as humans before we enter school, as well as informally learn during our lifetime, and those mantras are alive during this discussion. Be sure to be tuned in till the end of the webinar, where I will share with you my conclusions and recommendations to help maximizing your organizational strategic business outcomes. This webinar is based on my recent article with the same title as the webinar and is available on my blog. I'm covering in this webinar only some of the topics covered in that article, so please feel free to refer to the article for an in-depth coverage of the topics and other topics as well. In that article, I documented my 34+ years of experience in the area of human capital development that is based on sound research, actual implementations, and global mature practices. My experience spans the following domains: higher education, vocational and technical training, as well as corporate learning and development. At Cordoba Consulting Services, our research and development activities are in the following areas of expertise: e-learning strategies, skills mastery and competency-based learning, innovation strategies, hybrid, flexible and blended learning, strategic planning, business intelligence, and future foresight strategies. We at Cordoba Consulting Services have partnerships with international providers in the GCC, MENA region, Europe, and globally as well. The list of references and resources that I used for this webinar and for the article will also be included in the slide deck that you can access on my website. Let me give you an overview of the agenda for today's webinar. In this webinar, I'm starting my story with defining the purpose and the motivation that led me to this webinar. Then my story continues to share with you a claim that the current traditional learning and development practices are broken, and we need new learning and development paradigm. Moreover, I will present to you additional evidence, and especially with the COVID-19 pandemic and related unemployment, that capability building should continue, as well as the upskilling and reskilling of the workforce, as it is more crucial than ever. My story continues by proposing to you a practical approach utilizing mastery skills and emerging technologies to prepare your agile workforce. Moreover, I will share with you the features of the agile learning platform of the future as I see it. I will end today's story of this webinar by presenting you with my conclusions and recommendations to help maximizing your organizational strategic business outcomes. And finally, It will be my pleasure to answer your questions. So it sounds like we have a plan, so let's dive in. So the purpose is in this webinar to propose to you the skills mastery and competency-based learning, utilizing emerging technologies as a sustainable model for the development of workforce skills in place of the traditional one-size-fits-all approach. I will be presenting and recommending varying learning and development strategies during this webinar based on research and global mature practices. So please note that this is not a one-size-fits-all or take all of it all at once. Based on the maturity, resources, and the need to improve return on investment within your organization, my recommendation is that your organization choose suitable strategies and a phased approach. Now, the motivation, what motivated me in actually putting together this the article and this webinar? Before the COVID-19 time, research-based evidence was pointing to the fact that the traditional learning and development methodologies are not fit for the current and the future times. With the COVID-19, it accelerated the pace at the required changes that we need to actually address. So this is in this first section titled, Who do we need to learn? Why do we need a new learning and development paradigm? My starting point in this section is the claim that the traditional learning and development practices are broken, and we need a new learning and development paradigm. Huge amounts of money are being spent on traditional learning and development. Is it really worth it? So we're going to answer this question. To substantiate this claim, I will share with you survey results and data-driven conclusions to prove the claim. Then I'll move on to present the reasons I believe why current learning and development practices are broken. Then I will recommend at the end of this section to you a proposed Agile learning framework as a solution, and I will present the main features of that solution. Later during the webinar, I will be presenting a practical approach to implementing this Agile learning solution. So where companies go wrong with learning and development? I'm referring to an article that was published in the Harvard Business Review on October 2nd, 2019, where the author, Steve Glavsky, made a statement saying that organizations spent $359 billion globally on training in 2016. Then he posed the question, was it worth it? And his answer was, it's not worth it. So now I will share with you some surveys results in support of that claim. And references to those surveys is available, and you can refer to them if you'd like to dig deeper into this. 75% of 1,500 managers surveyed from across 50 organizations were dissatisfied with their company's learning and development function. 70% of employees reported that they do not have mastery of the skills needed to do their jobs. Only 12% of employees applied new skills learned in learning and development programs to their jobs. So, I mean, you can see the amount of waste, how much money been spent, and only 12% applied those skills. Only 25% of respondents to a recent McKinsey survey believe that training measurably improved performance. Not only is the majority of training in today's companies ineffective, but the purpose, timing, and content of training unfortunately is flawed. So we move on now. I move on to present to you the reasons I think the current learning and development practices are broken. Organizations in general, they mandate that employees attend a certain number of hours or days of training during the year. Usually, learning and development staff are the gatekeepers and use this number as a KPI for their performance. So it boils down to basically counting credits of how many training credits the employees have earned rather than focusing on business impact created by that training. For sure, measuring the business impact created by the training is not a much harder task than just only counting the credits. So why is learning and development broken? The first reason is learning at the wrong time. So no relevance. It bears little immediate relevance to their current role. Second reason, learning the wrong things. Most of the time, no exhaustive training needs analysis is being conducted to determine what each employee needs training, resulting in learners or employees going to the wrong, unneeded training at the current time. The third reason is quickly forget what is learned. German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus found that if new information isn't applied, you will forget about 75% of that information in about 6 days. And he produced actually part of his research, this forgetting curve. As you see here, this is the y-axis, the vertical axis is showing the knowledge retention, the information retention, while the x-axis, the horizontal, is showing the time elapsed since the new learning. As you see here, this is almost exponentially dying curve, which means quickly the information is being lost. And about 6 days, only 25% of the information is kept and is remembered. So you can see the wastage here. The amount of money is being spent, and if the new information or the new training has not been applied, it will quickly be forgotten. And the last reason here is talking about flawed training methodology. Usually, the current training practices involve intensive long day knowledge-based training and workshops, and that are mostly used basically to teach skill learning needs. Another reason, another flaw is that the what and the how are identified, but not the why. Why we actually delivering this training, why I'm attending this training. The why gives us a better way to assess the how. You will see later how I will talk about the need for classifying the training needs. So usually training is based on seat time, which basically does not demonstrate skills mastery. So in general, the general theme is use it or lose it. And this is part of our biology as it was proved. And unfortunately, a lot of the learning and development programs overlook those biological realities and invest billions of dollars into what amounts to basically forgetting or forgotten information. Now, I will share with you what I believe is the solution and apply lean learning. Lean learning. So let's look at what are the characteristics of this lean learning. So in general terms, it is short, affordable, and provides employees and organizations with an immediate capability update. So think of the 80-20 principle and apply learning to real world situations. So this is the first feature of the lean learning. The 80-20 principle basically, it says that 80% of consequences come from 20% of the causes. So let's say, give an example, let's say we would like to learn a new language. Look for the 20% of the vocabulary that comes up 80% of the time during conversations. The same way during training, look for the 20% of the skills that an employee require 80% of their time doing their job. Leverage guided learning, where you would use continuous and live application. So as they learn, they apply that learning. Personalized content, leveraging emerging technologies. Now technology could provide a lot of tools that could be utilized, as we will see later. Provide ongoing support through messaging and chatbots. Activate peer learning. This is an important, a new trend in actually training and development, is to activate social learning and building the communities of practice. And offer micro courses that for the duration might be 1 hour long or maybe shorter, and that address immediate needs. So what I've done here, basically, I shared with you the main features. In a later section, I will share with you the practical approach to apply those principles. So basically, with activating lean learning, we will be moving from counting credits to actually improving business outcomes. I move now to the second section. And with COVID-19 and the related unemployment, upskilling and reskilling, the workforce is more needed than ever. In this section, so this, I basically now sharing with you evidence that training and development need to continue, and upskilling and reskilling is more needed than ever during this pandemic. So as per the World Economic Forum report results issued in 2017, skilling, upskilling, and reskilling of the workforce was an important issue even before the COVID-19 era. I will also share with you the results of a survey conducted by Live Career here in the US. They surveyed COVID-19 unemployed people, emphasizing the need for upskilling and reskilling. I will share with you some of the results of that survey. As per a recent McKinsey article, it is essential to adapt to the COVID-19 times. Organizations need to be adaptable and to continue the capability building, even though in some organizations, they stopped the training. I mean, as they stopped other things due to the pandemic, but the recommendation is actually to continue. I will also share with you advice on creating engaging virtual live sessions, community feel, creating the community feel. For sure, I'm not promoting that virtual live sessions are the answer for continuing the training, replacing the in-class to live sessions, but live sessions is one component that could actually be utilized. And here I would like to share with you some strategies that you could utilize to help improve and make those sessions more engaging. Then I will share with you 5 shifts that can help your organization build resilience. And this is based on Deloitte's 2020 Global Human Capital Trends Survey. Deloitte, for the last few years, every year they do a survey of maybe 10 to 15,000 stakeholders from across different organizations across the world, and they issue yearly reports on global human capital trends. So let me share with you the results of the World Economic Forum report. As mentioned, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the gap between labor supply and demand was a problem for business leaders, and finding employees with the right skills was a key concern. And the pandemic made that issue worse. In a report by the World Economic Forum published in 2017, titled Accelerating Workforce Reskilling for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the following conclusions basically were issued as part of the report. First conclusion, 35% of the skills demanded for jobs across industries will change by 2020. And this is even more now in 2020. This is very true and actually more pronounced. At least 1 in 4 workers in OECD countries, OECD basically is referring to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, is already reporting a skills mismatch with regards to the skills demanded by their current jobs. Enabling and empowering workers to transform and update their skills is a key concern for businesses and societies across the globe. Then they continue, much of what we learned 10 years ago is obsolete, and half of what we learned 5 years ago is irrelevant. The current time, we used to see in the previous century people spending 40, 50 years in the same job with very little upskilling. This is not true anymore. The pace of change in technology and skills is beyond belief, actually. It's becoming imperative to prepare our young generations to the ever-changing job market and reskilling, as well as upskilling of our current workforce. And finally, digital learning models support very well the process of preparing our agile workforce for now and the future. I now move on to sharing with you results of a survey that was conducted in May 2020 by Life Career of the unemployed in the United States, and I'm sure in other countries across the globe. If similar surveys were conducted, they will arrive at similar results. So more and more reskilling and upskilling is more crucial. So let's have a look. There is the references are available if you'd like to review the survey and look at the sample size and the other survey related items. So 57% of those surveyed can't identify their transferable skills with a high degree of confidence. 58% aren't sure how to include transferable skills on their resume. 53% can't identify the best resume format to use to get to their next job. 34% can't provide good examples of how their skills would apply to another job. 58% aren't confident they can find new jobs where their skills would apply. And 56% are looking for a job in a similar industry, even though that industry may be significantly cutting back on employment. So as you see here, more and more, this is more evidence to you that we basically upskilling and reskilling and training and capability building should continue. Let's move on to the presenting to you that capability building should continue. Organizations and businesses like yours can't afford to pause their capability building efforts. Whether the effort, I know for a fact that there are some organizations and companies, I've seen this firsthand, when budget cuts happen, the first thing that organizations do is to slash the, or reduce the training, the amount of money they spend on training, which is, I mean, this is proving that this is not the right approach. One drawback, because people don't see the value and the return on investment on the current status of the traditional training. So that basically, well, this is training, we have budget cut, we don't see the benefit of this training, just cut it out. But this is not actually the real approach. Whether the efforts is reskilling at the business unit level or a company-wide aspirational transformation, companies can't simply push the pause button on critical workplace learning, even as they move rapidly to put employee safety first. So what I would like to present to you now, some practical steps that you consider for your organization. 3 of those 6 steps that I will present are of tactical nature, and 3 are of strategic nature. So the first tactical, practical step that you could consider is to build a cross-functional response team where they could, from different departments, so they give priority to must-have programs, especially like onboarding, especially if you have new employees coming in. Secondly, protect employees in in-person programs. If for some reason you still need to run in-person programs, make sure to communicate in advance the precautions that you will take. Adapt in-person learning delivery. So consider what you do before, during, and after a virtual session to maximize its impact. I will share with you those strategies in a later slide. On the strategic side, look at promoting and enhancing digital learning, and that includes social learning components. There are multiple platforms that you could utilize, like Microsoft Teams, Slack, and others. The second strategic step that you might consider, explore alternative digital learning strategies. So rethinking of the learning experience to enable collaborative, interactive, social learning experiences for groups of learners. And finally, practice and prepare for multiple outcomes. Consider scenario planning techniques, virtual versus in-person activities. I now present to you the strategies that you might consider to enhance and create engaging virtual live sessions and bring community feel to your session. And those are steps that you could do before the session, like ensuring that you are comfortable with the technology, share with the participants varying access links to the webinar or to the session, dedicate a moderator to manage speakers and discussion like we have today, send materials in advance to the participants. Things to consider during the session, leverage technology that is available to engage participants, keep the video on, look in the webcam and use gestures as you would do in person during in-person sessions. Use online tools such as polling and the chat to gather input. Consider features such as virtual breakout rooms to encourage participation. And then finally, after the session, distribute any work products or follow-up information solicit participant feedback on content delivery and technical experience, and escalate any technical issues during that you faced during the execution of the session. I now move on to sharing with you 5 shifts that organizations need to consider to build resilience, and this is based on Deloitte's 2020 Global Human Capital Trends. Those 5 shifts are under 3 categories. So let's look at these three categories and the associated shifts underneath them. So I would like to present to you going from the current practice to a new practice. So basically, under what workers or employees should be learning, the first shift is to shift from building skills to cultivating capabilities first and skills second. Then secondly, developing specific workforce skills to meet, or actually going from developing specific workforce skills to meet short-term needs, to leveraging workers' passion of the explorer to engage them in solving unseen and future problems. So we're basically building capabilities. How they should be learning, this is the second category. And under that, move from focusing on formal training and traditional education to supporting learning in the flow of work. Secondly, rewarding based on work output, or move from rewarding based on work output to rewarding based on capability development. And the last category, where they should be looking to apply what they learn. So move from preparing the workforce with an internal focus to preparing the workforce with an eye towards what benefits both the organization and the society. So now, how much time we still have?
Doctor, you can take another 10 minutes.
Maybe I need more than that. Is it possible?
All right, sure.
Okay, I'm now, this is the last main section where I will share basically the practical approach utilizing the mastery of skills and the emerging technologies to prepare an agile workforce. I'm presenting in this section the essential elements of a practical approach that your enterprises might consider to prepare your agile workforce. The approach utilizes mastery of skills and competencies based on methodologies combined with emerging technologies that best fit the selected learning and assessment strategies. So I will start first by providing a comparison between traditional learning and versus competency-based learning, then move on to presenting training methodology model, then present to you the technology framework supporting competency-based learning, training program structure. I will look at a sample training program structure, then look at a learning plan template that you could utilize within a learning management environment that could be assigned to a learner or learners, look at the cycle of outcome-based assessment, and finally, look at the sample portfolio assessment and verification process. So let's move on, basically trying to compare how the competency-based learning would compare to the traditional learning. Under competency-based, learners do not move on till they demonstrate mastery of the skills. So I'm gonna share with you multiple criterias, and under each of the criterias, I will show you how the competency-based learning would look like in comparison to the traditional learning. So under structure and time, under traditional, time is fixed, where under CBL, it's learner-centered. I mean, and the question, if you have questions, I could elaborate some more. I mean, quickly, time is fixed. You go to a training, 2-3 days, time is fixed, it's done, that's it. but learner-centered. It basically, the learner decides the pace. Progression, mastery of some concepts. Under competency-based learning, it's mastery of all concepts. Delivery mode, it focuses under competency-based learning on individualized learning. So it's not a group learning, individualized learning. Assessment method, go from summative high stakes like final quizzes to outcome and performance based. The pace, traditional training, it's faculty based. The faculty or the trainer, they have 2 days to deliver 5 objectives, and that's it. But under competency based, it is self-paced or learner-paced actually. Program completion, finish when required courses are passed. You could pass with a 60, 70, 80%, but under the competency-based, finish when mastery of courses is demonstrated. I'll give you a quick example. If I have a plane technician that will basically solve a problem in an aircraft engine, it's not enough that that technician is 60 or 70 or 80 or 90% competent. That technician needs to be 100% competent, otherwise the way he fixed the airplane engine might have some problems, which is that would deem the airplane not safe for travel. This is just a quick example. Training methodology model. In this model, the idea here is the training content need to be categorized into 3 components, and the model I'm presenting consists of three elements: knowledge, skills, and application. So the training that you would like to deliver, when designed, that training could be knowledge-based, where it would be what the learner knows and understands. Activities, example activities like guided learning, concepts, theory, and principles. Environments that could be utilized to deliver this training. It could be online, mobile, classroom, or blended. The second component would be skills-based. And skills is this what, those would be the learning activities that teach the learner the skills that they need to do, things to do. And example activities could be experiential learning, simulations, using maybe augmented reality, virtual reality, or maybe post-program experiences. You could utilize virtual environments, lab environments, outdoors, and so on. The last category is application-based. And this is where will be an opportunity for learners to apply what they learned under the knowledge and the skills. And example activities, reflective journaling, self-assessment, coaching and mentoring. And environments could be apprenticeships, internships, and on-the-job training as examples. Please note that as we go from knowledge to skills to application, we basically going from a model where we have one to many, one being the trainer, many being the learners, to almost under the application, one-to-one. That means I would make this observation that the training would be more expensive, especially if you go under the application, if you don't have the internal expertise to mentor and coach employees. So this is a fact, but for sure you will have a high return on investment utilizing this model. For sure, we're not saying you don't need knowledge, you don't need skills. it is a combination of these those three pillars. Let me go back. I advocate that this methodology could best be utilized using digital learning environment, where the digital learning environment would support competency-based learning, evidence and portfolio-based training, and have the right tools for analytics that allow you to benchmark and measure added value. This is very important for organizations to be able to measure the added value. So technology framework supporting competency-based learning. I will share with you the main features and more information is available. I'll try to be quick on this one. The first feature, it should provide learning plans or learning paths. It should allow for defining job roles, skills analysis, close skills gaps, be able to actually create skill gaps, on-the-job training, and engaging learning experiences. So these are the different the elements that the technology framework should have supporting competency-based learning. Now I move on to again quickly presenting to you the slide is available, suggesting what virtual learning environment tools could be utilized to support the skill mastery training. Quickly, I go through e-portfolio, evidence of prior learning, competencies, learning plans. All these tools are existing tools within learning management systems currently and could actually be utilized. I'm not here focusing on one platform. Different platforms have different tools. Rubrics, gradebook, assignments, workshops, quizzes, surveys, discussions, streams, chats, intelligent agents, auto triggers, awards, badges, certificates, progress reports, and data analytics. I will move on now to basically sharing with you a sample program structure and then map that structure to a learning management system or the competency framework tool within a learning management system. And in this example, I'm actually referring to terminology from the Moodle learning management environment. Other learning management systems have similar tools. I've used other like Brightspace, like Canvas. These different learning management systems do support the competency-based structure tools. So let's say we have a program called Eagle Vision Manager. Then this program is made up of modules. One module is operational and financial planning. Now for each of the modules, we have identified or categorized the learning under knowledge, skills, and application, like we did previously in the slide previously. It is required that learners provide evidence of their learning, and the program could also include soft skills or 21st century skills, or other people call them core life skills, like communication, problem solving, collaboration, and so on. Now, the operational and financial planning module is being divided into 2 units. Okay, the 2 units, let's take the operational planning. For each of the units, we have identified learning outcomes. So here we have learning outcomes. So basically, I'm showing you the structure of a qualification or maybe a program. Now, it is possible under some standards, program standards or qualification standards, that you dig further below the learning outcomes, where basically you could identify under the learning outcome performance criteria or skills that you would like those to be addressed by learners, and show competence and show evidence. So now I've showed you the program structure. What I would like now to show you how I'm going to map this to a learning management system, and in particular, the competency-based tools available within the learning management environment. As I said earlier, I'm referring to the Moodle platform. In the Moodle platform, you could actually define a competency framework name to basically map to the module, to the program structure name. Then one level down, they use taxonomy as a naming for the different levels. So at level 1, we define the domain, and this will be mapped to the module. Then one level down, taxonomy level 2, I'm calling this competency, and this is mapped to the unit. Then you have up to 4 levels. Level 3, I'm calling it outcome. This will map to the learning outcome, and then go to level 4 if you have this, if you have your qualification or your program specified even further, you could define the skill. So this is now, I'm actually giving you a practical approach that you can actually take and implement. Now, the next step is to show you how to utilize the competency framework that I showed on the first slide to actually build courses and then build a learning plan that you could assign to a learner. So let's have, for example, we have 3 competency frameworks. We have competency framework 1, maybe for finance, 1 for agile project management, 1 for data analytics. And the O here is referring that basically we have the structure within the framework for that particular program, and we have learning outcomes. So the same for each of the frameworks. Next, let's say we have 3 courses. And these courses, they have learning activities. You could have a quiz in a course, you could have a discussion, you could have a portfolio, you could have a live session, you could have assignment, and so on. There are many activities that I mentioned earlier in a virtual learning environment. So the first step here is we would like to link the outcomes from the competency framework to the actual activities. So I'm showing only 3 links now, and this could get very complicated, and to avoid making a complex diagram, I'm only limiting now to show you, to demonstrate the idea, only 3 links. So this outcome is actually linked to activity here in course 1, another activity, and another activity under course 2. And you could do the same for the others. And you could actually, within the learning environment, specify a criteria. For example, let's say this outcome is linked to a quiz, and you specify a criteria. If the learner scores 80% or better, or maybe 100% or 80 or 90%, depending on your criteria, then the learner would be deemed competent, and then you could configure the system to basically mark the learner as competent automatically. So now we would like to create the learning plan template. Again, this terminology I'm using is from the Moodle learning platform, and other platforms, they have similar or different tools to utilize. So in the Moodle learning platform, you could actually create a learning plan template where you would import into the plan outcomes from the competency frameworks. So I'm showing here only 1 outcome. Outcome 2 could come from here, could come from there, could come from a competency framework 3. This can be as extensive as you need. And basically, you would create a learning plan template for a role. So let's say you could create a role for HR managers, a role for IT technicians within your organization. And then you would assign basically this template to participants. So tools are available within the Moodle platform where the learner could actually look at skills gap and then find out, let's say for outcome 2, what are the courses? Okay, if let's say the learner is interested to learn, what are the courses that basically address, assuming that this outcome is linked to outcome 2, okay, to this learning plan. Okay, so what are the courses that satisfy outcome 2 and link to outcome 2? It will give you a list of courses, then the learner have the capability or the ability to register in that course and complete that course and then achieve that competency. Okay, cycle of outcome-based assessment. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. This is basically a cycle where you would revise your learning outcomes. This slide will be available. You can refer to it. Again, here, this is another slide on the mastery of assessment strategies, what you could utilize for assessment strategies. It could be a formal assessment, summative assessment, portfolio of evidence, reflections, self-assessment, verbal or written Q&A and interviews. I would like to move on to a more structured process where you guarantee or assure quality of the process. Okay, in revising evidence and deciding when the learner is actually achieving competency or not achieving competency, especially when you have human interaction and human evaluation of assessors of the evidence. This assessor could be the immediate manager, or in some organizations, in some mature organizations, they have actually built within their company or enterprise a qualification center. I know for a fact some oil and gas companies in the Gulf have actually implemented SCOTSVAC. This is the Scottish Qualification Authority. So they have a SCOTSVAC qualification authority within the environment, within their company, and they follow the standard and the rules. So their learners or employees, when they achieve the requirements, they will actually get a qualification. But I mean, again, it depends on the maturity of the environment, to what level you would implement a system like this. But the idea to show you that those systems exist, those processes exist, and they do guarantee quality in that process of skills-based assessment. So step one, the learner selects a qualification and register that with a registered training provider. Learner is registered on the virtual learning environment and also on the qualification system using maybe the HRM, the student information system, or the CRM. Learner uploads evidence of their learning on the virtual learning environment. Assessors assess 100% of the portfolios, here assuming we're using the portfolio as the assessment tool. And then assessors deem learners competent for the qualification. And this is here where they do the evaluation. So they might say, no, this evidence is not enough. You need to go and gather more evidence. Or yeah, this evidence is enough and you are competent in that skill. Again, you employ internal verifiers to basically check on how the assessors assess the learners. And internal verifiers only sample 25% of the work. Again, qualification authorities, they require that their external verifiers do the same sample check. and then the learner is required to basically submit their portfolio or e-portfolio as a for later use and for documentation purposes, and some of them they require this to be kept for a number of years. Qualification systems that use processes like this include the Australian TAFE, City and Guilds from the UK, Scott Vec from the UK, and other organizations like the ILM. I used myself in the UAE, the QF Emirates. So all these and others, I'm sure in other Gulf countries, they have similar processes that they would utilize. Very important piece of advice is to apply, is to put in place a change management and knowledge transfer plan. Too many new things to learn for learners, for maybe managers, for employees. One important advice is to basically put everybody on a virtual community using platforms like Microsoft Teams or Slack, where you induce social learning and you provide training sessions. Maybe you might design a e-portfolio template if this is your choice for assessment. This way, all learners use one single template, standard template, produce guides, and provide continuous support and feedback. This is here showing you briefly a screenshot from the Moodle platform, showing what the competency framework would look like. This is just a screenshot, and more time would be needed to actually go through the details of how you build this. Okay, the Agile digital learning platform of the future. I basically foresee that the Agile learning platform of the future to have multiple components, and this include social learning, include artificial intelligence, intelligent triggers and workflows, easy to develop and share digital content, have a powerful search engine, bite-sized content, augmented reality, virtual reality, and simulation capabilities, tracking skills mastery, skills gap, and personalized learning plans, dashboards and data analytics and reporting, gamification and reward schemes to incentivize learners, agile platform, new technologies and types of learners. So the platform could support actually introducing new technologies. So I move on to the conclusions and recommendations from today's session. I prove to you using data-driven and evidence-based arguments made by international leaders in the field that a new learning and development paradigm is needed. Capability building must continue, and more than ever, upskilling and reskilling are needed during the COVID-19 era and beyond. A skills mastery and competency-based learning approach utilizing emerging technologies was proposed as a sustainable model for the development of the workforce. Whether your organization is K-12, higher education, government entity, or an enterprise, the skills mastery model proposed during this seminar will be customized and adapted to your organization needs and requirements. And finally, I recommend that you consider a phased approach in your journey to overcoming resistance to change at all levels at your organization to achieve higher levels of maturity, building your organizational capabilities, and maximizing your strategic business outcomes. This is the list of resources that will be available. This is my contact details, which also be included. And we move on to the question and answer session. I thank you very much for listening, and I apologize if I've taken more time than has been specified. And I'll be happy to answer your questions now, and I'll be happy to answer also your questions later if you would like to follow up with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Doctor, for a very interesting presentation. Folks, we are now open for question and answers. So if you have any questions, you could either insert in the Q&A box, question and answers box, or you could equally raise your hand to speak to Dr. Mansoor. I see there are a couple of questions posted in the question box, and may I request attendees to please insert the questions in the Q&A box instead of the chat box. That will be easier for us to sequence and order the questions to read it. The first question from Dr. Al-Zahrani. Is it, from Dad Al-Zahrani, is it effective to use Kirkpatrick model to measure the effectiveness of the learning intervention?
It has, Kirkpatrick model has been used for some time, but I've seen new studies and new research where they suggest using data-driven information. If you apply a model like the one I presented today, you will have a lot of data that you deal with in order to measure effectiveness. I'll give you an example. One environment that I utilized, it actually, the model that I presented, measuring achievements on a competency framework, you could do basically an initial evaluation of the actual status of a learner, and then after the training, you could do another evaluation, and you could actually compare the two and prove with evidence the value added. So what I say basically is the new tools would offer you more enhanced data-based analysis to evaluate, more than just only a feedback survey. Okay. Hello?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's move to another question we have from Brother Mohammed Al-Sufyani. What is the right percentage balance between virtual training and traditional classroom training for an annual plan?
The model that I presented, it does not address this issue in the way you posed in your question. It basically look at the training from, I always love this model, the knowledge, skills, and application. And then categorize your training opportunities based on this model. This is what I would suggest. And based on that, you would basically look at the opportunities, whether you would deliver the knowledge using a platform. On the knowledge, skills, application model, I would give percentages. I would say I will give knowledge 15% of the time, I will give skills 25%, and I will give 60% for the application. The more application activities you embed in your training activities, the more that training is effective. I would actually look at this point in a different way, rather than just talking virtual versus classroom training.
Thank you very much. And there's another one from Brother Manal Al-Dakhala. In your opinion, what are the key skills and competencies that are deemed necessary for training and development managers to be able to manage the transformation process for creating an agile workforce in their organizations?
That's a good question. I think learning and development, it is very crucial that, hello, did we lose the, are we still there? Something is happening. Okay, I'll continue.
Yeah, we're still there, I believe.
Yes, we're still there.
Yeah, sure. I think learning and development, it should not be only the job of the HR managers or training and development managers. It is an organizational-wide mission. And for sure, the culture play a role, and leaders and top leaders do play a role in actually inducing innovation and inducing the right culture. I mean, I look at the training and development managers, not the sole owners of the transformational process in creating the agile workforce, but it is, I mean, training and development managers are key elements in actually executing the process, but they're not the final owners. It is actually owned by everybody, driven by the top management. I think what I've also to address this in more, what I presented today, I think is essential for training managers to actually consider and look at new strategies and what are the new developments in this area. This is a moving field. I mean, this is a very fluid and moving field, and skills requirements are very fluid, especially in the age we live in. So I mean, I always advise that people in those positions to always update themselves and always look at new approaches. Agility is the main slogan right here.
Great, thank you very much, Dr. Mansoor. Apparently, okay, then we have one question from Dikra Mansoor. Thank you, Dr. Mansoor. From my personal experience, using an online clinical portfolio was very rewarding and exciting for me as a student, and also allowed my instructors to review my progress throughout the year effectively. What is your opinion on peer feedback in comparison to instructor feedback?
I think, I mean, people use what they call 360. So you could actually, peer feedback is essential, is important, and 360 feedback would include also self-assessment. So, I mean, for the same, there is a learning that would happen from actually you evaluating your piece of work, ask a colleague or a friend to evaluate your work, and also your teacher. And then, or if you are in a work environment, you can ask your peer or ask your manager, and use that feedback to actually enhance your learning. And you'll even better understand your way of thinking of yourself. So for sure, there are benefits in all of these.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, that brings us towards the end, and let me just hand over to Dr. Mohamed Moustafa, who's also the founder and CEO of GPM Academy. I believe he has a question, as well as we'll have the concluding remarks. So Dr. Mohamed, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. I would like first of all to thank Dr. Mansoor from Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara. You know, frankly, your presentation is very timely and it's very relevant, and we benefited from every statement you have said. Thank you very much for sharing your depth of knowledge. You know, you referred to McKinsey article, and which talks about we will never be able to go back to normal again. And I just wanted to, because I work in the training and development industry, and what's your reading about, is classroom training will go back as it used to be, or we have to prepare ourselves for a quite a new way of doing training after COVID-19?
I mean, from my reading and the research and the way things going, and this is what I try to advocate during this webinar, is actually to consider alternatives, not because classroom learning is completely out of the picture, but we need to actually mix and match. And then, and again, I go back to the knowledge, skills, and application model that always helped me to put things into perspective. It is really important that some items could be done in the classroom. I mean, for example, if I want to deliver knowledge, I mean, most of the knowledge could actually be delivered online. People could go, maybe see a video, read an article, and then come to the live session or the classroom session to actually ask questions, engage. And this is what actually I promote using the live sessions for, even now for the webinars, or maybe the live training using Zoom. Those sessions could be utilized for discussion. So it's a host of many activities that need to be put together. And this is even the view before the COVID-19. And now people are actually talking about more and more about social learning, which is basically learning on the go. So the money that organizations spend on in-class training, they could actually spend on coaching and mentorship, where the learners apply the learning. And this is most of the learning will happen. So I think there is a need for a shift in where to spend the money, in which direction.
Okay, I have another related question. Is you know, we talk now today about the technology, and we can get the technology. We can train the trainer on how to use the technology, and you know, be skillful in using it. But the challenge we have faced since COVID-19, when we shifted totally into online, that the participants themselves, they are not willing to change the way they have been learning, and they still insist on having you know, live, you know, all the lectures delivered live. They want to see the lecturers. You know, if we give them pre-recorded videos and tell them this is more flexible to you, you can see them whenever you want, you can pause, you can rewind, you can do whatever you want. It's more flexible than taking the risk of having a live chat of the whole presentation, where, you know, technology can fail you down sometimes. So I have faced so much trouble convincing the participants that, you know, I will share with you a pre-recorded videos, and I will just meet with you occasionally 20% of the time, but 80% of the time you have to do it yourself. So they are not ready, or they don't have the stamina to self-pace themselves. So they discipline themselves to sit down and finish the material, you know. So I don't know, what's your suggestion? What should we do to change the culture of the participants?
Well, culture is one item, and also we need to look carefully at how we design engaging content. So we look at, I mean, is it possible to use simulation? Is it possible to use, to what extent we need to use videos? Is the learning activities engaging? Are you using gamification, for example? Is it of the type where you employed maybe storytelling? So there are many strategies and techniques in designing the content. Is the video short, long? After the video, are you engaging the learners with discussion? I don't think the idea of online is to just leave learners on their own. I mean, there is a shift. The trainer would need to utilize different tools and activities, but I don't think the idea, to be honest, the online learning, if you would like to have it effective, it might even take more time from you than in-class delivery.
I see.
It's not about time saving. It's about shifting the focus from one set of tools to another set of tools. In addition, we need to look carefully how we design the activity and how you engage students. Do you have, for example, under Moodle, you could design a learning activity where learners evaluate their peers, and then submit and then the trainer will evaluate them. So again, I mean, it is about learning more about the technology and see how the training strategies, assessment strategies fit within. So find a match between the two. When I talk technology, I'm not talking about IT people or technology people. This type of business requires people of different kind. Something that they call like technology strategists, technology learning strategists, technology educationalists.
Okay, one last question is you presented the Agile learning platform of the future, and it's a very ambitious framework, which includes so many elements: awards, badges, journaling, social learning, and discussion, and so on. I mean, such system with all of these features, is it affordable for trainers like us? Is it, you know, we don't want to spend so much time in Moodle programming. So what do you suggest as an affordable, easy to use, friendly, which is accessible both by the trainers and the trainees, that we can, you know, do most of the features, get most of the features that you talked about?
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I will start first. I mean, you need to tell me what is your delivery methodology. You need to tell me what your strategy for your learning strategy and your assessment strategy. I mean, some of the features that I listed, they already exist now in current systems. I mean, they already exist, but you would. I think the difficult part always you have people that know the content, subject matter experts. On the other side, we have IT people, but very little we have who understand both content, pedagogy, and technology, and be able to combine the two. So, I mean, they have actually, some experts have talked about a model where basically, because what we're talking about three elements. We're talking about content, we're talking about technology, and we're talking about pedagogy. So those three expertise need to be available in order to see the fit between what you're trying to establish.
I see. I would like to thank you again, Dr. Mansour. I'm really grateful to you for this presentation. And I think I usually conclude our webinars with a very short advertisement about our upcoming events. But in this case today, I need your feedback on these 3 slides, which I am using to present the upcoming certificates. I wanted to get from you, free consulting online now about is what I'm doing now, this is the proper way. So let me talk to you while I'm talking to the participants as well about what the solution that I tried to put together based on the so this, as you see here, it's offered in Arabic language. It's an international certificate. Let me just click to see. Okay, sorry. Next. So what I did, I video recorded all my lectures at Udemy platform. So you have the lectures at Udemy platform, about 50, 60 hours of training material, followed by an online exam at Udemy platform as well. And then certificates is issued. There are 2 modules, one in strategic planning, one in performance management. So if you just look at the numbers of hours at the bottom of the screen here for this course, for example, it says this 13 hours, this is 17 hours, 7 hours, this about 5 and 6 hours as well. So what we did here, we put the training on video format and the test as well in video format. There are assignments during the classroom, but they are optional. so people can, either apply, send them or not. Of course, these are the different case studies that we have, but this is what we do, so people have access to the video library on Udemy, and also they have the PowerPoint slides in open format, so they can use them when they go back to work and apply the knowledge that they have learned here. So they have ready to use the templates. Of course, they have live lectures with the professor, with the speaker, but we are not going through the whole material. We are just doing an intro session to introduce the material, and the closing session 1 week later, for question and answer. So this is how we try to mix these two together. Of course, the participants receive certificates from Udemy platform in addition to the certificates he received from the online, from the Global Performance Management Academy. This is the, how we put together. We used Zoom and Udemy. We try to give the participants videos, PDFs, and open slides. There are online, true and false questions, in addition to optional practical exercises. So can I get your free consulting and feedback on the solution that I have just presented, and tell me how can I do just, minor improvements, gradual, so, I'm not ready to use Moodle and spend lots of time programming Moodle and use an IT guy to support me. That's why I used an existing platform, which is Udemy and Zoom.
Okay, let's go back to the model that I presented, knowledge, skills, and application.
Right.
I mean, from what you described, more or less, you're still in the knowledge component.
That's correct.
And we're talking about, this is what, 15% of the learning activity.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to this, I mean, there are improvements that could be done. I mean, to actually use PowerPoint, where learners download the PowerPoints, you're basically taking the learners out from outside the learning environment.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you go to Moodle, I mean, you don't have to implement or any other platform, or maybe this one. I mean, I've seen Udemy myself. I mean, you can still do discussion under Udemy. I'm not really sure if you can do assignments, but probably you can. But
yes, you can.
But there you can't actually build a competency framework to actually evaluate learners. So you're only depending on quizzes. So what I say here, I mean, more or less, the activities are still within the knowledge component, which I think if you consider adding some of the skills, some of the application, where learners could actually bring their own work-related problems and then solve it. But this would require maybe more attention because then you would go into the mentoring part. When you go to the mentoring part, you will almost start dealing with learners on one-to-one. So then the training will become more expensive, but you will but the learner will have more return on investment.
Right. And remember that we are dealing with 300, 400, participants at one time. So, we may select 2 or 3 students and do this with them, but we cannot do this with the whole, with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality. And but again, I mean, the number is staggering when we say $359 billion spent in 2016 worldwide. The question is, can the $359 billion used in a different way, better invested in a way to be more productive and to improve business outcomes, rather than just only saying, yes, we attended so many number of days of training. I mean, this is up to every organization to think. I don't blame all training providers. It's also the organizations that they seek to to basically look at, I wouldn't use the word, but less expensive training activities, because they don't see the value. It's a cycle. I mean, where do you start? Who will break the cycle?
Yes, it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, who will break the cycle? I think that also depends on the maturity, the culture of the organization, their ability to innovate and to actually invest in their employees.
Okay, where are you staged? Are you in UK or United States?
I'm in the US.
You are in the US. You know, one final question. What is the plan of the American universities with the new semester coming? Are the universities shifting more online degrees? And in this case, their degrees can not only be marketed in the United States, because now you have virtually, you can reach anybody in the world. Do you have personal information about or impression about what is the direction of American universities regarding the new academic year?
I do. I mean, first of all, there are some universities already before the pandemic were built to be completely online. There are some universities even have engineering programs that are a bit accredited. You know, ABIT is the Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology. So it is the organization that accredits engineering programs in the US, and some Arab universities have ABIT accreditation. I mean, Arizona, I think Arizona State University, they have for a number of years running electrical engineering, bachelor in electrical engineering, fully online, and it is ABIT accredited. I mean, other universities, I don't think now they are offering completely online degrees, but some of them, they are moving in that direction. And even before the pandemic, if they don't move in that direction, I mean, they will be out of business very soon. And now the pandemic actually made this worse, because you see what's happening. Things are changing at a fast pace. And to prepare an employee, to upskill an employee, if you need 2 years to upskill an employee, by the time they finish the degree, the technology has changed. So it is crucial. Now, as an example, California University System, one of the California University System, for this coming semester, they're moving online completely. But doesn't mean now they accept students to study completely online. They're moving this semester to online. Other universities, my son goes to Louisiana State University. For the lower level classes, what they've done, because they conduct these classes in auditoriums, you have maybe 100 or more students. These are year 1 and year 2 classes. They are doing those classes online. For higher level courses, they are doing those in person, but those courses have a smaller number of students, so they can actually move them to larger halls to keep physical distancing. Okay. So it's a mix. It's a mix.
Okay. Thank you so much, and I would like to leave the floor now to Mr. Ali Jeffrey to conclude the webinar, because we have all the participants for an extended time. Thank you so much, Dr. Mansour.
I mean, you're welcome to I mean, we could communicate after the work. I mean, further if you need anything.
Yes, certainly, I do, yes.
Inshallah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed. Thank you very much, Dr. Mansour. And I can see, based on the list of the participants, they are still glued. So indeed, you have kept them intrigued based on even the discussion that you had. Very useful, very intriguing, and very productive. So I really want to thank you, Dr. Mansour, on behalf of the GPMA Global Performance Management Academy, for taking the time to not only deliver this presentation, but also to give a live feedback on the programs that we are promoting on this website, as we can see on the screen. So thank you very much once again, Dr. Mansour, and thank you, Dr. 3M, for sharing your thoughts on it also and asking very interesting questions. So with that note, I would like to end and conclude. So you all have a good day. good afternoon, good evening, wherever you have dialed in from. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.